Well, hello friends. Welcome to the Ladybird browser update for June 2023. This has been a very unusual month, so let me tell you all about it. The first thing we're going to talk about is sponsorships. In the last 2 months, I've been venturing outside of my comfort zone quite a bit and worked on some fundraising for Ladybird, and it has been successful. So now I'm going to tell you about some new sponsors. The first one is Shopify. Shopify has stepped up and become the first ever corporate sponsor of Ladybird with a very generous contribution of $100,000. Here is what Mike Shaver at Shopify had to say. Ladybird is a love letter to the web and proof that open technologies enable innovation by organizations of all sizes. This is particularly heartwarming to me because Mike is a browser industry OG, and he was a founding member of Mozilla back in the day. And I was just really happy to learn that Mike likes our project. And we also got a nice Twitter shout out from Toby, the CEO of Shopify. And I guess I'm a little bit biased now, but I really do think that Shopify does do an amazing thing by sponsoring open source projects like this, especially unusually ambitious projects like Ladybird. That is so cool, I think. And yeah, huge thanks to Toby, to Mike, and to all the folks at Shopify that I interacted with in the last couple of weeks. Really, really excited about this sponsorship, so thank you. Next up, I also got 2 anonymous sponsorships, one after the other, both donating $100,000 each. These are from folks who are fans of Ladybird, but they prefer to remain anonymous for now. Fair enough, I guess. I really appreciate the support. One of them was in the form of cryptocurrency, which means it's going to take some time and effort before I can actually make use of it legally, but that process is at least ongoing. Here is also an interesting one. A German company called ohne-makler. They offered me a contract to make their website look good in Ladybird. And to be clear, I'm supposed to fix bugs in Ladybird until their website looks good. I don't have to edit their website. And this seemed like an obviously awesome contract to me because anything I fix in Ladybird benefits the whole web, not just their website. So this is work that we would have to do anyway. And now they are going to pay me $10,000 to do some of it. So really, really excited about this contract as well. And I will show you the site a little bit later in the presentation. Finally, I can't talk about sponsorship without thanking all of you who have supported me for years on GitHub and Patreon and PayPal as well. As many of you know, I've been doing this full time for 2 years now, thanks to the generous donations of so many sponsors. Which is really cool. And of course, I also have to thank my wife who supported me and my dreams even before there were any sponsors. But yeah, thank you all so much for believing in me in the past, in the present, and hopefully in the future as well. So, what will all this money be used for? There are still a lot of details to figure out with regards to taxes, accounting, and some other things. But my first goal after that is to hire 1 or 2 people to work full-time on browser stuff. I've been doing some recruiting, but there are a lot of human details and complications there. One thing is for sure, I'm learning a lot of new things lately. But I hope to have more updates on this very soon. All right, that's sponsorship. Next, I want to tell you about a trip that I made this month. I went to the Web Engines Hackfest in Spain. This was a conference hosted by Igalia, where people from all the different browser engines meet up and give talks, hack on stuff, normal conference things. And of course, I gave a talk about Ladybird, which was very well received. The talk was recorded and posted to YouTube, and I'll put a link to it in the video description, of course, so you can check it out. Actually, after the talk, I was answering questions for quite a long time. I think 40 minutes, some of which on stage, and a long time after leaving the stage as well. So people were really, really interested in Ladybird, which was a lot of fun. And I had a great time at the conference, meeting all the different people from the different engines, learning what they were doing. And I even met 2 other Ladybird hackers there, Alex and Linus, who had both traveled to Spain as well. So it was a great time all around, and I will definitely go there again. While I was traveling to the conference, I had a stop in Frankfurt. And while I was there, I was able to connect to a Wi-Fi hotspot in the airport using Ladybird. And I think that might be the first time anyone has ever done that, so that's pretty cool. You can see me connecting to the Lufthansa lounge hotspot here. Also on the trip, I learned that people in Spain get up a little bit later than I do in the morning. So while waiting for the conference venue to open, I was just sitting in my hotel room and worked on getting the hotel website to look better in Ladybird. And this is what it looked like when I arrived at the hotel. And this is what it looked like after a couple of mornings of working on it. So made some good progress there. Anyway, now let's get back to normal and talk about what's new in Ladybird itself in June. So big thing we've been working on this month is the Bytecode VM in LibJS. After a pretty long period of relative neglect, we are back to improving it. And we are now doing quite well on Test 262, the JavaScript correctness and compliance test suite. We've gone from 74% to 86.4% in the last month. And we are now approaching parity with the AST interpreter, which is the current default interpreter. And we are only 350 points behind the AST interpreter. So those are like 350 failing tests, basically. And we were 6,300 points behind a month ago. So we have fixed thousands of test failures in the Bytecode VM in the last month. Really, really cool. And I've also added a flag so you can launch Ladybird with the Bytecode VM and test websites with it. Previously, there was no way to do that, but now that we're closing in on feature parity with AST interpreter, we need to start testing it in the browser as well, not just in the console. So a bunch of people worked on Bytecode VM, myself, Luke, Daniel, Leon, and Alex, and maybe I'm forgetting somebody, but thank you everybody who worked on bytecode stuff. And I think if we just keep pushing forward, we are going to pass the AST interpreter pretty soon, and then we can even get rid of it, which would be really nice because the Bytecode VM can support more features that the AST interpreter cannot practically do. A new proposal was implemented this month. So Iterator helpers is a stage 3 proposal, I think, in the TC39 proposal process. And Tim Flynn implemented most of it. I think there's at least one API that isn't implemented yet, but it's fairly complete. And there were a bunch of tests in Test 262 that started passing because of this. So really, really nice. Thank you, Tim, for implementing Iterator helpers. We've also gained a whole truckload of new CSS functions this month. I think Stellar 7 went on a tear and just added lots and lots of these. And this was actually more helpful than I expected because, as it turns out, websites actually use a bunch of these. In particular, min, max, clamp are quite commonly used these days. The math one's a little bit less, but maybe they'll start showing up too. But that's really, really cool. Also, in LibWeb with CSS, calc now works in many more places. It has historically been a problem in our engine that some properties you put calc and it just doesn't work. But we are adding support for calc in more and more places. In particular this month, line height, box shadow, font size, and percentages in calc works better now. var in calc works better now. So just a lot of nice improvements to calc. And myself and Hunter worked on calc stuff, I think. Some other CSS goodies, aspect ratio. This was implemented by Sam this month. This is really, really nice because it allows you to define an aspect ratio for a box in CSS, and then you can say that, oh, this has an aspect ratio of 16:9, and then if you specify width, it will infer the height from that based on the aspect ratio. So really useful feature, actually. And immediately after Sam added it, I noticed a bunch of websites started looking better, and I hadn't even noticed that they were using aspect ratio, but it actually fixed a bunch of things. We also got border spacing. I think that was Andy. And Andy's been doing a whole bunch of table layout work this month, which has been great. We got bounce checking and type checking in the CSS parser. Sam has been doing a lot of work on parsing CSS and making sure that values are within the acceptable set of values for a property. And that stuff just keeps getting better and better over time. It's a large and complicated thing to parse CSS because there are so many properties and they have such interesting custom behaviors, many of them. So it takes time to get all that right, but we are making progress. And as usual, we've had lots and lots of flex, grid, table layout fixes. I think we even had some absolute positioning fixes in there. But layout continues to improve. Another thing that is really sweet this month is the audio element. But we can now play sound in Ladybird with audio elements, and it plays on a second thread so that we don't have glitches. And if you have JavaScript hogging the main thread in the browser, we don't want audio to be interrupted by that. So this uses a multi-threaded model. And this was implemented by Tim, who also adapted the video element UI so that we can use the same media controls for audio and video elements, which is really cool. We also got the SVG use element this month. Again, one of those things where after Preston added it, I started noticing, wait, all these websites have use elements on them? Because sometimes things just start getting better after somebody adds something or fixes something, and then you realize what an important feature that was. So the use element allows you to instantiate an SVG subtree multiple times, which is a really interesting and useful feature of SVG. Performance definitely needs work. In larger documents, the presence of use elements can bog down performance a bit, so we're going to have to make it a little smarter, but it is really, really cool to have it at all. Ooh, testing. This is a really nice thing. So there's a big test suite called Web Platform Tests, which is maintained by all of the browser engines together, I suppose. I don't know really who's in charge of Web Platform Tests, but there are millions of tests in there, and historically we haven't been able to run them because it requires quite a complicated runner. But now we have a runner that can at least run a small subset of the tests, and we've started running those on our continuous integration system. So I think we run some of the CSS2 float tests on CI, and as we improve our runner, we'll be able to run more and more of these tests. The big thing that's different in our setup versus how others manage web platform tests is that we merge all of the expectations for the tests into a single file instead of having a million files. Or I think I've seen other browsers have like 60,000 files, I think, in their repository that like describe the expected result for each test, which seemed like a little bit much to add 60,000 files to our repository for that. So Alex, who also made the ref tests runner for CI and made all of this work, he also made a thing so that we merged the expectations into a single file, which is really nice. So thank you, Alex, for working on that. Something random that I did that turned out to be pretty big visual impact was implementing support for SVG images without a ViewBox. As it turns out, many websites have SVG images where they don't specify a ViewBox, but just a width and a height. And the way that other browsers handle this, it seems, is to just infer a fallback ViewBox from the width and the height. So we do that now as well, and then things start looking a lot better. As you can see here, for example. Finally, I wanted to show just a random, nice little visual thing. Andy added support for inset box shadows, which we can now render as well. Okay, so that's a lot of slides. Let's actually use the browser a little bit and visit some of the websites that we worked on this month. So let's make sure that we launch Ladybird with the use bytecode option. So we got the new VM, and then we will go to ohne-makler.net first of all. This site had a bunch of issues at the start of the month. The cookie banner wouldn't show, and it would crash all the time, and SVGs were not looking correct, or just lots of different little things that I ended up fixing. And ohne-makler, by the way, is, as I understand it, because my German is a little weak, is a website where you can buy and rent real estate without involving a real estate agent. So check that out if it's something that's relevant to you. But yeah, so I've been fixing various layout issues here, and pretty pleased with the way it's looking. These reviews here are supposed to be in a multi-column layout, so that is something that we're missing. And I think there's a multi-column layout somewhere else on the page maybe as well. And we're also not loading the right font for the page because it's a WAF2 font, and we only support WAF. So there is some remaining stuff here, but on the whole, the site is looking pretty nice. Next thing I want to show you is, let's go to VideoLAN.org, the website of the VLC project. So this is one that I worked on a little bit, and the site is starting to look pretty good as well. Even has some smooth looking animations going on, which is really cool. And I've just fixed a bunch of random things here to make it look almost perfect, actually. A few blemishes, but it has some interesting performance problems. In particular, this little download counter here makes a huge mess of the DOM, and we're not smart enough to not relay out everything whenever they update that counter. So that's something that we're going to have to deal with in the future, because I can hear my fan spinning up in the background from looking at this page. And of course, when I was at the Web Engines Hackfest, I had to make sure that the Web Engines Hackfest website was looking right. So Alex and I actually spent, I think, almost 2 days just fixing bugs for this website. Look, it's me and my talk. This venue was great. The site had a bunch of issues. We tracked them down, and now it's looking good, which is great. The host of the event was Igalia, and while I was at the event, I also spent a bunch of time fixing the Igalia website in Ladybird, and Alex helped me there as well. We had to fix various Flexbox issues, grid issues, and there were more issues. I forget exactly what they were. This site has some performance jank, which we haven't dealt with yet. There are, I think, 4 full window-sized gradients layered on top of each other with transparency, and we kind of choke a little bit when we have to just render so many pixels over and over again. So that's an area where we can improve, and we have some strats in mind for improving that, but at least the site is looking pretty okay. It just doesn't perform great yet. speaking of traveling, I was just visiting random websites relevant to my trip while I was traveling and fixing stuff on them. So Lufthansa, I was flying with Lufthansa, so I ended up on their website, which takes a moment to load, but I was able to get the layout looking pretty good. Spent a bunch of time fixing Flexbox issues and image sizing issues. And we had some crash on Lufthansa as well. I think there's a little bit of a vertical margin issue remaining here. But on the whole, we were able to make Lufthansa look pretty good. Little bit janky, but pretty okay. I also worked on Null.com, which is an indie game studio, and just fixing little issues on their site. And then I was getting close to perfect on their website, and then they went and just made a new layout for it. So then I've been trying to catch up and fix issues on the new layout, but it looks good at the top, but then we have issues further down where these are supposed to be some kind of smooth animation with transforms and stuff that we don't support yet. And as you can see, the text here is unreadable. So we got work to do, but it is pretty sweet still. This looks pretty sloppy, actually. Yeah, need to work on that. Apparently, maybe this is a clue. I also wanted to mention GNOME.org because that's another site that I spent some time on, just fixing the layout and making it look nice. And I think it actually ended up looking really, really nice. There's even an animation here. Yeah, exactly. Look at that. Kind of smooth and almost downright silky, which I'm really happy with. So that's cool. And I think it was in one of my slides already, but I did also fix a bunch of things on kde.org, in particular, of course, this laptop here, which was kind of busted at the start of the month, but also some like minor layout blemishes here and there. So a lot of just visiting random websites and poking around, fixing things. It's a very, very satisfying workflow, I find, because you get to see real websites improve while you're fixing little issues. And not only do you improve that website, but you probably improve 1,000 other websites as well with anything that you fix. So yeah. All right, that's all the things I wanted to show you today. There were, of course, a lot more things happening this month, but it would take hours to look at all of them. So we have to stop somewhere. Thank you all so much for stopping by and staying up to date with Ladybird. I am super excited about the future of this project, and I look forward to showing you more progress next month. Bye.